The proportion of people in Northern Ireland who speak the Irish language may only be in low single figures, but the question of how bilingual the province should be remains a potent political question.
Well, a dispute over legislation to use more Gaelic in Ulster has threatened to derail attempts to get devolved, the devolved assembly in Stormont, back up and running. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, has now agreed to introduce an Irish Language Act by the end of September, should Stormont fail to do so. Darren McCaffrey understands quite a lot about what is a complicated story to people who are outside of the province.
It is a complicated one. So essentially, hopefully most people are aware that Stormont has been resurrected, and then it collapses, and then it resurrects again and collapses again. And to a large degree, it is over this issue of the Irish Language Act. So on one side, you've got Sinn Fein, who clearly want to see the Irish language protected, encouraged, that it is recognised in Northern Ireland. And you've got Unionism that I think largely fears it to a degree, because they see this as a kind of another stepping stone towards a sense of a united Ireland, that they do not want to see, for example, Irish on street signs, so that you would have bilingual street signs, for example. And that has led to essentially the Assembly collapsing in the past, because Sinn Féin insisted this needs to be done, and the DUP have just not been willing to do it, even though it must be said they have committed to doing it in the past. What has changed is in the last 24 hours, Brandon Lewis, who's the Northern Ireland Secretary, has said, essentially, if Stormont failed to do this, if the DUP failed to agree to it, we will, as a UK government, go over the heads of Northern Irish politicians and make sure this happens. Now, why is that important? It's important because today, after Arlene Foster was booted out by her own party as Northern Ireland's First Minister, Edwin Poots is expected to announce his replacement, or her replacement, later on. And that replacement, Paul Gavin, needs the consent also of Sinn Féin. So essentially, Sinn Féin have won this battle to ensure that the UK government is going to implement this Irish Language Act to try and get Stormont to stay where it is.
And what would be the significance of this act when it is implemented to Irish people on the ground? What differences would they expect to see? This
is the point that you pointed out. Hardly anyone speaks Irish, and it's not just in Northern Ireland. Not many people in the Republic or down south speak it either. What it would mean is £28 million, and it's not just for Irish language, it's also for Ulster Scots, which again is mainly spoken by people of Protestant or Unionist backgrounds. Practically, is it going to make much difference? No, but as we know in Northern Ireland, symbolism, things around things like language do matter an awful lot. And for, Sinn Féin, for nationalists, they feel that this is about equality, that there's a sense of recognition by the Northern Irish state that the Irish language is a thing and it should be recognised.
And all the time, the numbers are changing, aren't they, in terms of, Sinn Féin has emerged as a genuine political force in a way that wasn't true 20 years ago, for instance.
Oh, definitely. Sinn Féin's support is quite incredible, and it's now on both sides of the border. When we look at where they are in terms of the opinion polls, it's entirely possible they could be the largest party in Northern Ireland, and they could hold the position of First Minister at the next election. It's one of the reasons the DUP, despite all the bluff about this Irish Language Act, aren't willing to see Stormont collapse, because that would lead to an automatic election, one in which they would suffer, according to the polls, quite badly. But you're entirely right about Sinn Féin support also south of the border. They're now polling way ahead of the other main political parties there. Of course, they won the most number of votes at the last election, but were unable to form a government. And they are now an incredible political force on the island of Ireland. Again,
obviously it goes without saying they're a radical political force.
They are, and
they're very left-wing. They remain very.
They're left-wing. Obviously, they've got links to the IRA and to terrorist activities in the past, and it's one of the concerns again that Unionism in Northern Ireland feels very much on the back foot. They feel kind of quite threatened in many ways. They know that their position is pretty tenuous, and they feel unloved by both Dublin and London.
And they've lost that leverage that they had during Brexit.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, Darren, thanks for explaining. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Darren.